All right, I would like to call to order the Monday, June 10th meeting of the CCSD59 Board of Education meeting. Mr. Mancia, can you call the roll, please?
Sure. Zach,
Present.
Eddie,
Present.
Spino, absent. Johnson,
Present.
Mancia, aye. Me, Sager,
Present.
and Chesney.
Present.
All right, if we all could please stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sorry. We gotta put that on. We gotta rearrange.
Okay, so for our next item, we have the Education Foundation presentation of scholarships.
This does bend. Okay. Thank you. All right. My name is Marlene Passo. Those of you that don't know me, I just figured out that I've been in this district 50 years. First is, it's not all good. You know, first with my kids as a mother and then as a teacher and now as a foundation chair. So I'm glad to be here though. Otherwise I wouldn't be. What I would like to tell you is I was here in the fall and I told you about all our great plans. I want to real quickly tell you what we've done so far. We have funded $45,000 for the school district. Part of that being grants to the teachers who applied for them to be used in their classroom. Part of that is the Calm app that we've made available to all staff. We also support the back to school program. We've provided many backpacks. And we work with outreach with Ashley. And we've worked with Mi Casa Su Casa to get furniture for people new to the district. They have no place to live. And I told you about the wall of art. And like my house, the things go slowly here. But that's okay because it's going to be perfect and beautiful when it's done. And it will be done before the end of summer. We have all the artwork. Each school is asked to present 2 pictures, a vertical one and a horizontal one. And not the same students. So 2 students from each school will be represented. And those will go up with their names and some information. And we're notifying the parents so they can come and see it. So you'll be seeing something shortly. Also, one of the last things I want to tell you about is our scholarship program. This was like a divine intervention. That we said, could we do this? And we said, I don't know. Well, turns out we could. So we contacted District 214 and we talked to them and they really helped us out and we really helped us out. We came up with some great ideas. What we decided to do was fund a scholarship for any student in either Prospect, Elk Grove, or Rolling Meadows who had been in District 59 for a minimum of 3 years. And then there were other things. They had to write an essay, they had to have the grades, so forth and so on. We can make that available to you if you'd like to see it, but I'm not going to take your time now. Anyway, we have 3 wonderful winners. And before I introduce them, I want to tell you that going to those award nights and seeing all those students just warmed my heart in a way I can't tell you. They're so wonderful. They're not just ours, but everybody else. They're just good kids, good students. They're all got plans for their lives and they know what they want to do and where they're going. Made me very proud to be a mother, made me very proud to be a teacher, and what made you feel really good too. So I'm going to turn this over to our 2 our scholarship commission members. They headed this whole thing up. They got it all going. They did a fantastic job. Rose Kelly and Ann Spangler.
Okay. My name is Ann Spangler, and I'm a retired District 59 teacher. And I have not been involved with the district as many years as Marlene has, but I'm counting in my head, and I think it's like 34 years. And this is Rose Kelly, and Rose Kelly is a retired
Office manager.
District 59 office manager. And we are so pleased to announce our first District 59 Educational Foundation Scholarship winners. Now, each one of these recipients received a check for $1,000 to help with their college expenses. We selected one winner from each of the high schools. So Elk Grove High School, Prospect High School, and Rolling Meadows High School. And we did have many applicants, but these 3 students, they really exemplified the importance of the great foundational experience that our district provides. So I will introduce them now. So our Elk Grove winner is Maritza Segura Martinez. And Maritza attended Grove Junior High, and she will attend Lake Forest College, and she is majoring in psychology with a minor in legal studies. So Maritza, could you come up, please? And we'll have you stand over here. We have a little extra gift for each of them. Okay. All right. Our Rolling Meadows High School winner is Kira DeVito. Kira attended Juliet Low Elementary School and Holmes Junior High. Kira will attend Loras College in Dubuque, Iowa, and she is majoring, this is the tricky one, in kinesiology and minoring in Spanish and religious studies. And she's also excited to be playing on the women's soccer team at Loras. So congratulations. Okay, our Prospect High School winner is Giselle Velasquez, and she attended Robert Frost School, my last school that I taught at, and Friendship Junior High. She will attend DePaul University, and she plans to study history and is also on a pre-law track. All right. So we wish all the winners the best of luck as they continue to advance their education, and let's give all of our winners a nice round of applause.
I just want to say kudos to everyone who works in District 59. Not only, did we, but reading all of these essays, I can't tell you how many times Ann and I called each other sobbing, because we know how hard it was for some of our kids to get through things. And with the help of their parents, they accomplished what they chose to do and the obstacles they had. So it was my honor. It was absolutely my honor. And if I don't cry now, I'll be happy.
And one
All
more
right.
thing, we hope our plans are to expand this program.
Yes.
So could I ask real quick, congratulations to all the winners. Thank you to the foundation for everything you do. Would you mind saying a couple words about how members of the community or anybody who's watching this can support the foundation and the work that you do?
Oh, Marlene is great with that. We'll put her on the spot with that. She's got like this button, we just turn her on and she can just speak about the foundation.
These are my notes. I've been in it long enough. You can go on our Facebook page, and there's a place there where you can donate. I'm right, Jane? And also online. You can go online to District 59, your homepage. There's a place to reach us, the District 59 Education Foundation, and there's also a page there where you can donate. You can use PayPal, or you can use, credit cards and so forth like that. And that money would come directly to us then. And we're glad to accept that and use it. And I really think that this year especially, we've really found some really worthwhile things to spend our money on, and we hope to do the same thing in years to come. And we'd also like to work with the district. I'm meeting with Terry in a couple of weeks, and we're going to see what can we do together, to further education. And that's one of the things that, even when teachers apply for something for their room, we don't want to hear, I would like to have some pillows to sit on. Okay, that's important. I know I was a kindergarten teacher, but we want something innovative and something different, something you'd say, look what I did in my classroom. Would you like to do something like this? I mean, that's the kind of thing that we're looking for. And we found it. Your teachers are doing it. They really are. So that would be how. Okay? Answer your question? Thank you.
Great. Can I ask a question to the recipients?
Sure.
Oh,
First of all, congratulations. We are, all of us, I'm pretty sure we're very proud and we're very happy that you guys won, and all the best and coming out to college and beyond. Question on what did you find the most difficult, the most challenging? How did you overcome it? And any advice that you would give to any future students that would be applying for a grant like that? Feel free to come up to that.
So my name is Giselle, and I attended Robert Frost and Friendship. I think one of the biggest challenges was like I'm a first generation student. Like my parents didn't go to college. My parents barely speak English, so it was just overcoming that. But honestly, like I wrote in my essay, like I really do think the community we built in dual language, like I was in the dual language program, that really gave me the support to I had like a little family, you know, and like that's what I wrote about in my essay, and that little family like really pushed you. So I think having like a support system is really what helped me get through everything.
Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Marixa. I went to Grove Junior High, and the challenge I overcame and I wrote in my essay additionally was being put into a stereotypical role in my school. I was someone who moved, so I didn't know anybody. I didn't have any friends starting middle school. And so whenever I was speaking to anybody who was Hispanic, which I felt a little bit more comfortable with because that's who I've been surrounded with since I was little, because my whole family is Mexican, I was then placed into a stereotypical of, oh, this girl's not going to pay attention to her grades. She's going to be one of those kids that are going to go sneak out or like smoke, with a lot of the like Hispanic population that are in low income families. A lot of them are placed into those stereotypical roles. So primarily were the support of my teachers. All of them wanted the best for me, and so that's what helped me overcome my challenge. And an advice for anybody who wants to overcome is just get a good support system like anybody else who's trying to overcome anything.
My name's Kiara DeVito, and I attended Juliet Low and then Holmes Junior High. One of the things that I would say was kind of a challenge was the stigma around like diversity and like having a lot of different people in our classrooms and in our schools. And one way that we kind of came forward with that challenge was trying to just be as inclusive and trying to get everyone to be students and not individuals that are different from each other. We're trying to include everyone and go toward our common goal of like gaining knowledge and learning as students. So.
Let me make a little comment. No, excellent. Congratulations. Many years ago, when I was a freshman in college, I applied for a scholarship and I won $200 back then, and I thought that was like a ton of money. The $200, but it was that little spark that I needed, because I'm hearing a lot of the themes of like the community and the support, and it was that little check that I had that said, you know what, I can do this, or I can do more than this, and it was like the ball rolling down the mountain, right? So just remember that there's a whole community that supports you in whatever it is you want to do, and they're out there. Don't be afraid to ask for help when you need help, because they'll help you, right? And don't be afraid to help others when they need help too. You know, so you guys are on the right path. Congratulations and best of luck.
All right, while they file out, we have next up the Wold update on the Brentwood project and realignment study.
Okay, good evening, board. Mike Eichhorn from Wold's Architects and Engineers. I'm here with Allison Andrews here. If questions come up. I'd like to go through an update for Brentwood addition and renovations, as well as our educational alignment study that we did for your 11 schools. So thank you. We enjoy the continued partnership with District 59. Tonight I'll go over kind of an update on what were the goals of the project, the site, the existing floor plan with some of its challenges, the proposed schematic design, interior, exterior, and then talk about the phasing of the construction, and the overall project. Nicholas and Associates, Dave Torres is here as well if there's any questions. Also, the educational alignment process. You know that we completed the process for your junior highs and Brentwood. Now you're looking at the remainder of the district. Okay. So whenever we do a project, we always want to make sure we all agree on what the goals are. And sometimes they are aspirational. And so here we want to create a safe, welcoming facility, particularly for the newcomers. Music and art environment should be age and curriculum appropriate. All the spaces should be adaptable, flexible. That's something that did come up. You know, how do we create a future-ready school? And also to create spaces that accommodate all school assemblies. That was part of one of the goals. Okay. So the site here, you're maybe somewhat familiar with it. You'll see in the upper right-hand corner there, the property that was purchased that allowed us to do the full gym and classroom addition there in kind of the brown-orange color. One of the criteria was that we had to maintain the playground as is. So that created a kind of a baseline there for the southern end of the property, southern end of the addition. We're also providing additional parking spaces. That was a definite need. So we're providing 31 additional parking spaces. The field, existing green space is part of the construction that has to be disturbed. So, but it's also an opportunity to restore it back to a full green soccer space that can be used as well as for PE. Okay, next slide. The existing floor plan had its challenges. Certainly, you know, the need for professional development space, the need for kitchen improvements. You also have the two additional classrooms, the portable classrooms that are currently being moved off-site. So in the next plan here, we're addressing those needs. So you have the additional gymnasium, the current gymnasium, music and art are brought into that. There's a staff workspace that provides for that professional learning space. The LRC is being expanded as well. You'll see that in the next plan here. This was the result of our meetings with staff and teachers. We really want to make sure their voices were heard and that there was consensus on what was needed programmatically. So the gymnasium can provide for all school assemblies. It's the correct size, provides for 2 sections of classes, art and music, as well as a band and orchestra space, which was also needed. So this is the plan that's being proposed and being designed, and we're currently in the construction document phase. Okay. So part of the design work is to do exterior design. We took cues from your existing building. The brickwork, the stonework, it's a very solid building, so we want to make sure that the new addition was in harmony with the building, and so it blended in for you know, the community. When they're walking by, they want to feel pride in it. It wants to be welcoming, and we feel it should also blend in, and that was reviewed with the core planning group. So this is a view looking from the field towards the gymnasium. To the left is a 1-story portion, and you see the entrance over there to the left as well. That's the entrance to the kindergarten classroom. There's also a kind of a building site maintenance entry there for your snow blowers, your salt. That was an amenity that currently is kind of in a storage kind of building on site. That building will be taken away. And then your new playground space. This is a view looking kind of southwest, the new parking on the right there, and the doorways there are leading, you know, from into the gymnasium. The architecture itself, like I said, it basically matches what you have there now. You have the brick, which will match in same color. The lower kind of wainscoting also will match the existing. And then you have some almost like a prairie style kind of detail at the top there where it meets the coping. In this view, this is from the parking lot. To the right is the existing building. And the brick, we have really good match for that. The rendering obviously shows a little bit different red. This is an interesting shot because it's the event entry. And so what that allows is really the gymnasium can be locked off in the evening. So it has its own washrooms, it has its own entryway. And so that's an amenity maybe we hadn't pointed out originally, but it's a really great illustration of how you can open up the building to the community. Okay. The construction is, think about it in two phases. We are going to be bidding this in July. The construction will start, you have kind of two areas there. The addition will start construction in September and go through the following into August. So essentially 1 year of construction for the addition, so during the school year. Renovations will occur next summer for the remainder of the building. This diagram here is also showing where the fence line would go, the construction fence. So working with our construction manager, we developed this to make sure that the safety of the kids is of highest concern during construction. And so we have reviewed this with the staff and with the construction manager. So we believe confidently that this will provide a safe environment during construction. Okay. Synopsis of the schedule. We are currently in end of construction documents, which is essentially the detailed phase of the project. Bidding will occur, like I said, at the end of July, and then all this is contingent, the construction is contingent on the board awarding this in September. Okay, and then the schedule there. All right, any questions on the building component of this, Brentwood? Yeah. Yeah. So the parking lot on the upper right, that is new. To the left there. Yeah. So the dashed line is your construction fencing. The construction traffic would be coming off of Brentwood. But again, that whatever's inside of that dashed line is the kind of the where the excavation, where the movement of dirt and that is going to happen. So the existing parking stays as is.
So okay, so the addition, the actual construction will begin targeting September 24. And then we assume it will go in the winter months, or does that stop in the winter months?
No, it would continue into the winter.
Okay.
With the roof intact.
Mm-hmm.
And then the masonry will start, and then it'll continue up through the spring.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. But it will be, it'll be winter,
Mm-hmm.
snowing.
Sure.
But they've taken that into account in the schedule.
So the heavy lifting, the heavy construction work all takes place generally in that June through August, but it's the worry we had, I remember when we discussed this originally, was kind of construction workers in the hallways while kids were working. It'll be all tapered off on one side. Not that we can't hear it, not that the students can't hear it, but it'll be minimum, the disruption will be mitigated as much as possible.
Yeah, I don't know, Dave, if you want to chime in or not, but. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Ron. So the intent would be to stay out of the existing building during the school year. And then, yes, come June, July, August is when you'll see the workers in the building. We make the tie-ins, for the MEPs and do any of the renovation work. But yes, from September through the winter and then into the spring, the focus is just going to be on the addition and getting everything prepped and ready for the summer.
Okay.
Can you just briefly discuss what kind of mitigations are being put in place so that the kids are minimally disturbed by noise?
Want to come up here?
Mm-hmm.
Might as well just join it.
Yeah.
Just make sure it's on.
Yeah.
Green is on. Yep.
You're good.
Green is on. All right, so there's a couple of different options. I mean, anytime we're building right next to, like directly adjacent, there's going to be noise. There's going to be distractions. However, some of the things we've done in other districts are, it's just the communication that takes place between our site superintendent, who's there every single day, and your staff on, hey, if we have testing these days and we need to be quiet for a couple of hours, we can limit certain activities or just do whatever needs to be done to minimize the impact overall on the students inside of the building. Utilizing weekends, mornings before students arrive for a lot of the louder activities, that's something we've done. Depending on preferences, we've closed up windows if there's a visual distraction element involved, but it's really just a communication between your staff and then our teams to figure out what's going to make the most sense so that we can, be efficient while working with minimal to no impact on the day-to-day student activities.
Okay.
I'll just hang just in case.
Yeah, stay here just in case. So the other component here is the educational alignment assessment. This is just a reminder of when we think about those, we look at the hierarchy of needs. Certainly the highest priority is your physical conditions, safe, warm, and dry. And then we start to look at, the capacity, enrollment, the physical size of the buildings, safety, security. But, we want to look at those future-ready schools to think about the initiatives, the activities, the encore areas, and then also the interfacing with the community. So that's holistically looking at the district here from many different angles. Again, we did full interviews with the principals, special education, safety, security audit, every single room. Allison, myself, and our team, we walked every building, almost every room. But we really felt that was important to have a really good look at your district and all their needs. And also some of the overarching data about enrollment and master schedules was taken into account. So with that, we are complete with the utilization plans in the sense of knowing what the capacities are, the room usage. We're at a point now in this stage of the study where we're going through this, looking for sort of emerging themes, things that we are seeing cross-cutting across the district, needs, programmatic needs, and also meeting with kind of the next stage here is to meet with administration to understand how this is going to look comprehensively across the district. I think that's kind of where we're at. We are going to come back in August for an update and then deliver the final study in September, the final booklet. And I think all of you, maybe, or most of you had the previous version that we did. So it'll be similar to that, but again, across all 11 of your elementary.
Silly question. When you review the buildings, are we seeing common themes amongst the buildings in a sense of, for instance, when they were all built, we used the same companies and same contractors and architects to build them, so now they're all kind of the same, or are they really different?
I would say they're very different at different stages. And it's not untypical that districts will, at this building, we need 2 more rooms. So, we'll put 2 more here. Over here, we need a new entry, over here. So it's kind of, each building's got different styles, different size classrooms. And I think this is at a point where how can we make a experience for the kids all equitable across the district? If one building has a really tiny, gymnasium that's also used as a cafeteria, where another one has a full gym and a full cafeteria, how can we begin to equalize that experience? So.
I'd like to go a little further. So when you look at the usage in the schools, you're also looking at intervention needs and that sort of thing, right? So we may have the same number of classrooms in 2 schools, but one school may have a higher need for ESL resources, that sort of thing. That's being taken into account as well.
Yeah, each function that's currently there. So a lot of resource spaces, ESL. that is an area kind of, if you think about a theme across the district, that's definitely a theme where one classroom is now used for 3 resource teachers, or what was once an office or a lounge is now used for OTPT or a sensory room. And so there's definitely that make do attitude, which is great in the sense that you're utilizing all square footages, but it's not really allowing for that future ready school. But yeah, no, definitely we do document that. We do document how it's not being used, adequately, and projecting out a little bit about what might be coming down the pipeline as far as, student services, ESL, intervention space, gifted space, all that.
So we're kind of have a convergence of a lot of different projects that are coming to a point now where I think they're going to intersect a lot in terms of what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, you're evaluating every school right now and seeing what we have.
Correct.
Right. So then as we look into like the dual language program, which presentation will come later, we're going to need to be able to tell you next what's the programming going to look like,
Right.
because that's going to dictate what the needs of the schools are going to be, how many kids could potentially be going there, and that sort of thing. So what, and I'm sorry if you're not done with your presentation, like what do you want us to think about before you come back in August? And what would be helpful in moving the process along? Maybe, I think we all have a pretty good idea of what's going on at Brentwood. Basically, taking a 3-section school, keeping it a 3-section school, just giving space for those extra supports, giving them a full-size gym, putting a kitchen in there. So that is when you say future ready, that school is going to be useful for 3 sections for the foreseeable future. And so we kind of have it. So we kind of know the model for that, right? And so what do you need us to think about in terms of like the next phase? And then also, this is probably hard, but different costs, right? So like if we're just going in June through August and renovating a school, just like updating the look and feel of it, what's the cost on that versus what's the cost of what we're doing at Brentwood versus what's the cost of adding 2 sections at every grade level, like a big renovation at different schools. So I guess I'm telling you something that I would like to see, but also what do you think we should be thinking about so we're prepared for August?
Mike, do we want to jump
Yeah.
to the next slide so you can kind of look at your phases and where we're at versus what that next big step is?
Yeah,
this
in
is
combination
That's
with.
kind of where we're at. So, yes, it's a dual language program. Do you want to, what is the anticipated need, but also do you want to have that at each site where the students are in sort of a neighborhood concept? Or are you kind of gathering that program maybe at one site or one wing of a building? And what does that mean? So I think defining those programs, who should be with who and potentially where, and then bigger picture is then how is that going to affect the boundaries or the capacity of that particular building, that you're not taking away from like what happened at Brentwood where you're displacing music and art. So I think if you can agree that Brentwood can become kind of like a template, if you will, of what a future ready school is, if that's an agreement, then I think you start to stipulate these dual language. Do you want to have it again at kind of centralized at each building?
So as part of what you're doing, seeing what buildings can even be expanded, because Brentwood we almost couldn't expand it too much because there's not a lot of space there.
Yeah, originally. We do have, until we determine what the need is, then we can determine if it can be expanded. I mean, we do talk to, this is the property line. There's really no place, we'll make note of that. There's no expansion available. Or, hey, this park is next door, wouldn't that be nice to expand there? But I think, no, we will tell you what the limitations are. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're not going to, that's kind of the next phase here that you see, the phase 2, which is where you're talking about establishing the criteria. Then we'll do test fits or assess at each site what that means. and then how that interplays across the whole district. I mean, there's going to be different options, right? There's not going to be necessarily like I show up one day with the perfect option. We'll show you different with different permutations of how this could look, which is, I think, what you need to see.
Yeah.
And for the junior highs, we did the alignment study, but we didn't do the next step of aligning them.
Correct.
Right?
We didn't
so
show
would that
that.
be part of this as a big picture idea of looking at the junior highs as well?
It could.
I think they all
I think it all
play against each other.
it sort
right?
of meshes.
Yeah.
I think that the junior highs are somewhat, maybe doesn't get quite to the dual language question, but yes, it would all interface with it itself. Yeah. Yes, we would look at all that.
Okay.
Our hope is that when we have all 15 studies complete, we can then enter into phase 2 where you can then prioritize.
Yeah.
Because there's limited funds and competing priorities. So I think that's going to be the bringing all of those pieces of information together to say what is the most pressing need, then what are the must-haves, the need like to haves, where does all that fall, and then how do we develop a 5 to 10 year long range plan
That's
so we can do it.
The longer range, we have some needs that are probably immediate, right? Or need to be addressed very quickly, sort of in the first few years of a 5-year plan. But we can look at what's possible further out as well if we're careful about it.
Yeah, it's a master plan. So you don't want to do something here that you have to undo later, but you know that this move here is going to help this other move, and you're implementing it because it takes a number of years just to cycle the kids up through the sections and the
in your
and the
experience, how long will Brentwood be? I mean, this is impossible to know, but if enrollment stayed the same, program stayed the same, how long would Brentwood be adequate for?
given like 10, 15 years from now? Or
No, yeah, I'm just curious, like how many, like Brentwood's getting updated.
Yeah.
How long do you think that will, if enrollment stay the same and everything?
How
being
far in the
equal?
future is future?
Oh, I mean, these
Yeah,
are,
right.
I mean, if you think about how long the buildings have been in the district, I mean, some of them are 50, 60 years old. So I think in this case, you're at, 10, 15, 20 years. I don't think that you have to come back and revisit these buildings 10 years from now.
Okay.
If it goes to 20, I don't know what's going on in 2044, but
Well,
I
Juliet
think-
Low's a good example because that was 97, I think, when the big construction happened there, I think. So it's been 25,
That's-
30 years, give or take.
yeah.
That now we reassess kind of like the space again.
And Salt Creek was 2003, 2000? Yeah. Okay.
yeah. So I think
So phase two, we're coming into September. We're gonna start, right? Or what's the timeline here?
to come back to the board in September with the final report.
Are you talking construction or the studies?
The studies.
Yeah. So the reports will be ready in September.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Let me ask a timeline question. Actually, the first part of your presentation. I think you said that it would go out for bids in July. Did I hear
Correct,
that right?
yeah.
And that's just for all the various, like the masonry work and everything else. Is that what's going out to bid, like all the various?
Yeah, so there'll be bid packages.
Mhm.
So you have masonry, drywall, general trades, electrical, mechanical. So those will go out in different packages.
Mhm.
And then on bid day, you'll get all those competitive bids for each one of those packages. And then Nicholas Construction will assist with putting that together to make it a full construction project.
So like the timeline schedule, is it what's the risk of it having to move due to lack of bid responses? Is there-
We will know.
Come on
I
up.
think I'll let Dave answer that.
Yeah. So I would say there's not really a big risk in getting good responses. It's a really good time to go out to bid, especially for a project like this. It's a quick turnaround with a September, award and us starting. And I think that a lot of contractors are going to be hungry because they're going to be coming off the summer work. So I think we're going to get some favorable bids. I know Joe, if he were standing right here or sitting right here, he'd say we've got a whole host of contractors that love doing work for us, love doing work for you all. And so there's a lot of interest here. I think we're currently out to budget on the 50%. So that's, I think, coming back on Thursday, maybe. But we've gotten a lot of great feedback thus far. And so, we're expecting a great turnout. No concerns.
Okay.
So if we had contractors out there watching us right now, right, where would they go if they were interested in bidding?
Say that again?
Where would they go to get the information on the bids, how to submit the bids?
So, once we get through construction documents, essentially when we go out to bid, we'll send out invitations to bid if there are contractors that you have preferred vendors. We notify them as well. It's a public process, so there'll be a public ad out there for any contractors that want to access the documents. We'll send them electronic copies. Like Mike mentioned, we issue bid packages based on this scope of work. So maybe there'll be, anywhere from 8 to 10 packages, and that's what we'll receive bid-wise back. And we're looking at July here, so Joe will do scope reviews immediately following the bid opening, and then we'll ultimately make a recommendation for approval in September.
Two things. In your final analysis, are you going to be including those appendices with the interviews with the principals from the buildings? That was immensely helpful to me in the last report.
Yes, we will.
Okay,
Yeah, we
great.
have all that, all that documented. Yeah.
Sure.
So
The
that'll
second
have all the
thing
highlights.
I would love to hear eventually from you guys is we have priorities, I think, as individuals. We also are going to have to develop priorities as a board. What I would like to hear from you guys is your professional opinion about what the priority schools are in your opinion. So like Brentwood is a must immediately, and in our professional opinion, these two schools are also a must immediately.
Yeah, 'cause
Sure.
I think we all have ideas of what we suspect are
Yeah.
the priority schools, and we'd like to hear. Hopefully, what you say will be the same as what we think.
Yeah, I think that certainly in our assessment, we want to, usually we will compare, we showed last time that matrix of how the buildings compare to each other, or they might be deficient from, a program like these spaces don't exist or they're too small. And I think from that, it grows out of that data. Ultimately you're the decision makers on, what needs to move forward. And certainly the administration can make recommendations as well based on us working with them. So yeah, I think knowing that, we'll insert those recommendations as needed, if that is helpful.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting because once we get the plan in place, I think it was your first meeting was at Brentwood, right? Or like right after the election, and that was April 2023, and we're still talking, so it's a process,
Yeah.
for each school, time-wise. Thus, we have to make sure we get it right with the priorities.
And that's the reason I wanted to ask if we're talking about priorities. Not sure if it's even possible to put it in my decision matrix, meaning difficulty versus impact, because that sometimes helps grab those quick good wins. And yeah, it can help prioritize the money as well.
Cost versus impact.
But that's the difficulty typically equals cost, right? Typically, not always, not always. So it would be good to see if there's some things that are like, hey, we can do something quick and help XYZ very quickly, even though it's not the top priority, but that's a quick win. We can potentially even do it in parallel with something else that we would normally stack up and delay, right?
Yeah, certainly your buildings, we continually to improve them, right? From things that we know that no matter what need to be done, which ultimately goes to, better impact, like you're saying. So
I think the alignment and timing of this also with our health life safety plan, which is going to be coming due in the next few years, which also involves our architects, that really helps prioritize like safety and maintenance pieces and compliance pieces. Those get prioritized right away through that, which is what we've been using to navigate, when we have to do HVAC systems or roofs or windows or, our secure vestibules. I think what's going to be nice is to line that up with then what are the enhancements and renovations that we can make that enhance the learning experience. So putting those two pieces together, which really does come down to community values. So I think there's going to be some professional input that, you know, the team can make for recommendations. And then it's going to come down to what do we really value as a community in terms of whether it's gym space, auditorium space, kitchen space, all of those things are going to start to becoming those nice to haves, but
Yeah.
which is going to be the greatest impact and need and aligned with our budget and costs.
Yeah. You think about that hierarchy of needs. I mean, the base is kind of your facility, your roofs and your parking lots. But then as you move up, you get into those educational enhancements, aligning to, you know, be future ready. So that all needs to be considered.
Good. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so moving on, 4.0 is comments and suggestions from the public. Is anybody here who wishes to speak? No? Okay. We will move on to 5.01, FOIA requests.
The school district has responded to 3 FOIA requests since the last report to the board.
Thank you. 5.02, the dual language update.
All right, so we're going to welcome Dr. Perdomo and Ms. Savage to the front for our brief presentation kind of overview. This is a follow-up to multiple conversations that we've had with the board, all dating back to, I think, our most comprehensive last presentation with our dual language task force took place in January. And so we wanted to bring forth an update on our work, but really focus more so on the conversation tonight with the board. So it's going to be very limited recap, but then get into what are the things that we can actually do. It's going to tie in very nicely to the conversation that we just had, because all of these things are absolutely interconnected. But this is the opportunity for the board to really share what are your questions, what is your input, where are the parameters that we can then take back to our dual language task force and really guide us in coming forward with options for how we transform and improve our program. So with that, I'll kick it over to our team to start.
All right, so good evening. The first is we wanted to talk about bilingual education. And bilingual education, if you had a chance to read what was placed in the board update, is anytime a school has 20 or more students that speak the same language, regardless of grade level, so just within the school, bilingual education is required by the law. So in District 59, the model that we have chosen is dual language. There's transitional bilingual late exit and also transitional bilingual early exit that are all acceptable models of programming. And then, go back up. And then I just wanted to recap the identification process. Is we do have a home language survey that's also required by the law. In the home language survey, there are 2 questions that all families are asked upon registration. And that is if there's another language spoken in the household or if the child speaks another language. So 2 of the things that we have done extensively since, within the last 3 years is really trying to educate our families and understanding what does that home language mean, and then also how to ensure that they're filling it up properly. Because sometimes what we do have is we have, relatives are living within the household for a temporary period of time. So then they would mark yes, and then that indicates a screener. And then sometimes then it misidentifies students, and then they're being identified as ELs when not necessarily are needing those services. So through our kindergarten informational nights that we've started now for 2 years, we try to educate all of our families coming into our district for the first time when they're filling out the survey and understanding when should we mark yes and when should we mark no. And then also, what does it indicate when you mark yes, just so that there's no surprises for any of our families. And then most importantly with that is that when our families do come and they have the language screener, is that they all have a choice. So even though we offer dual language, we also offer ESL, and we also give the rights to the parents to deny services altogether. So no family is told this is the track you have to go to. We believe that any student, regardless of the program that they're in, our job is to educate them and give them the best opportunity possible to succeed. So that's in all 3 of those aspects, whether it's dual language, ESL, or the monolingual education.
Can I just ask, I just tell the other board members that me and Joe met with them earlier this week you were gracious with your time, so thank you. So if you need more information, I'm sure they'd be willing to meet with any of you. I got a lot of questions answered. And so maybe just to clarify for everybody else, if there's 20 kids in the school who speak a certain language, let's use Russian as an example, it doesn't mean there needs to be a dual language Russian program. It just means they need ESL support.
So they need native language support. So anytime there's 20 or more students within that school, there has to be native language support. So what the state identifies as native language support is that we have to do our due diligence to try to at least provide one content area in that language. Now, when it comes to a language like Russian or language like Ukrainian, which we do have in 2 of our schools, different schools, the law also indicates that when there is no instruction available in writing for those students, then we are able to then opt into an ESL programming. It's when there is accessible written material available to students to be able to instruct them in the content, we have to provide that native language support. Not that the students need it, it's what we have to be able to give them the access to have it if they want it.
The categorization question, at Forest View, where there is no dual language, that is considered ESL support, not traditional bilingual.
Correct. So at Forest View, all of our students, so that are Spanish speaking, because they qualify for TBE services, they qualify for bilingual services, they're offered the opportunity to go to a dual language building in order to receive those services. And now if families choose not to do that, then they would stay with ESL. That's how we're compliant with the law, because even though Forest View doesn't offer it, we do offer it within the district, allowing students to move elsewhere to receive it. And also to bring up, since you brought up Forest View now has Ukrainian as a bilingual education programming. So we're currently in the market right now. We have a posting up to try to hire a Ukrainian speaking teacher to try to support within the building for those students that do qualify for those services. So we're trying to do our due diligence in getting that done.
So those students would be pulled like a traditional intervention for a period of time every day.
So those students, if we were successful in hiring a Ukrainian teacher, we would then reach out to those families and give them the opportunity to receive instruction in Ukrainian for those students that would need it. And it would be a pull-out model, similar to an ESL model in that case because of the Ukrainian, because there is no written materials available. But the students would still have access to that native language support by a teacher.
Sorry, how long would that pull-out be? Like, in terms of hours, et cetera?
Yeah, so it depends on the student's composite score, so their access score level. So a student who is at the higher need of language, so a student who is at a 1.0, so access goes from 1.0 to 6.0. Any student that falls within that 1.0 to 1.9, they're required at least 300 minutes per week. So that would be about 60 minutes per day. It's very hard to get to that. Especially when you have a language outside of Spanish or Polish because of the needs that we have within our district. So we try to at least give 30 minutes per day for each of our students. We do that. And then as they progress through their level of language acquisition, those minutes then by law start to dwindle down.
So I have a question on the screener test. The screener, so there's this screener questionnaire that essentially says, do you speak another language in the home? If so, the screener test they're given is in English, is that
correct? So the screener that we provide our students, that's the required screener, is all English. So it's identifying their English acquisition. So in kindergarten, it is only measuring their oracy, which is then looking at only listening and speaking. So it's the receptive language and then their production of speaking and what they're able to produce in that. They have to score a minimum in order for them to not qualify. So out of 6, they have to score a 5.0, which is very hard to obtain sometimes. So when we look at the home language survey, and this is something as directors across the district, we have lots of conversations. When you have a 5-year-old coming in for the first time, meeting with a foreign person that they haven't worked with, sometimes it's not about language, it's about the students' adaptability and being able to produce some of those things. So, we do our best to try to weave those pieces out, but the home language survey is a must by the state, and so there's a clear criteria that we have to follow in order to produce that.
Which is a state requirement, and then this to me is the flaw in that state requirement is we don't then test them on Spanish, or we do.
So we only test them in Spanish if they opt to be in the dual language program, but we're not testing them. We're not testing them necessarily initially to understand where they're at in Spanish through a screener process. We're doing it, though, in order to get a baseline of students, because I do believe that it's important that when our students go into dual language, what we were trying to build a better understanding is who is our demographics that we're serving. Because a lot of times when students mark Spanish as a home language, it's just that, a home language. The student is really not coming in with that the linguistic complexity of Spanish. So then what this is able to do is provide our teachers more understanding of who their students are in front of them. We don't do that globally, though, for all Spanish-speaking students. We only do it for the students that go in the dual language program because we use it as a baseline to start to identify and track how successful they're being in the dual language program as well. If the goal of dual language is to become bilingual and biliterate, we want to see that their English acquisition is also meeting up with their Spanish acquisition. But we have not gotten to a point where all Spanish-speaking students could be given that test, because then if I'm sitting in a monolingual classroom, but I'm Spanish-speaking as a household, I may know some materials in Spanish, and then I can use that to leverage, the teacher can use that to leverage how to continue to support the language and make those transfers within the classroom.
Right, but the decision to, the required decision for Spanish language services is based off of English proficiency, not Spanish proficiency.
Correct. For any language, it is based
Right.
off of English, yes.
Right. And so that doesn't mean that if you bring in a student who speaks another language, that they're like, you could test them, if we could test them in English and this other language, they could test low in both, in which case you would perhaps not decide to do dual language, you would decide to focus on English.
Absolutely, yeah. And one of the pieces that we also do in our district is that we also have a linguistic profile that we meet with every family, which is why we do the centralized screening process through it. So everybody essentially comes here. It's the one-stop hub. And we meet with all the families because what we do is we want to better understand who that child is. What is the language that they're producing at home? What is the language that they have at school? How did they learn language? A lot of those questions, because, there's many times where we have a student who might be coming in as a 5th grader, and they come into our district and they've only been instructed, they mark yes on the home language survey for Spanish. And they come in, they screen, and then they qualify. So sometimes it's like, oh, why not dual language? But no, it's more complex than that. We have to meet with those families and understand what is that academic career for that child. So if that student was only receiving monolingual instruction, only English instruction with ESL support, and they're coming in 5th grade, even though dual language is an opportunity and an option for them because they qualify, we have those conversations with parents about, well, what does that mean for your child right now in 5th grade? Because they're moving from a English-speaking classroom for the last 4 years of their academic career, and then putting them into a dual language setting does not necessarily mean that it's going to benefit them because the Spanish is there. Sometimes it's also educating our families on what is dual language as well and making sure that they fully understand those complexities. That's why we don't tell all families that if you're Spanish speaking, you must go to dual language. We have to educate all of our families so that they can make the best academic decision for them. On the other hand, though, is that if a family wants it, because it's the model that we provide, we can't deny that.
And the parents that fib on their home language survey, there's a backup plan to catch the students that possibly need the services.
So the unfortunate thing is we have to abide by what the home language survey says. So there are many times that a family will come in and, I'll use Ms. Savage as the example. She'll come in and she has her daughter who's in 5th grade, and we know that they come from a bilingual speaking household. We know that they're Spanish speaking, and they've gone through the program and they're, doing well. But Ms. Savage now has a secondary child that's coming in. They're starting kindergarten. She marks no on the home language survey. I can't go to Ms. Savage and call her and say, I know you did not tell the truth on the home language survey. The law states that we have to follow whatever is indicated on that home language survey, even if we know that that's not what reality is. We have to abide by what she has marked. The same goes the other way. For a family that says, well, no, I don't speak it anymore. Well, you marked it. Which is why we're trying to educate our families to really ensure that they're truly understanding why they're identifying and marking yes and yes or yes and no, because we want to make sure that they fully understand. And that is a complexity. We have families that sometimes do mark yes because they want dual language and they know it's an easier path to get into the program. And then we have families who say no because they don't want anything to do in association with any kind of bilingual programming or ESL because of the taboo that they might have experienced when they were younger in their career.
Yeah, I made that comment before of when we joined the district, my first interaction with the district was an angry email to your former who had your role before me, because my son we did yes on the survey, and I thought he would be isolated, and that was my thing, and I did not want him to be isolated, and I didn't understand what the program meant and everything like that. Is the process the same for dual language Polish? Is everything identical?
So the only thing that's different is that dual language Polish only is a one-way program. So that's where it gets a little bit more complex because we have a lot of families that, admire and they want to continue with that Polish language and they want to continue with that heritage. That sometimes they will mark, on the home language survey that they're not proficient or the students aren't proficient when they come into screen in order to be in the program. But our students, when it comes through it, we have those conversations, and for the most part, it is the same with the exception of it's just a one-way model. So only way to get into dual language Polish is to qualify for services. So sometimes, that does cause some waves with families because those that want it and are honest and the students produce and they do very well, they're not given that opportunity and then they get upset.
So I have a question about that because I think it will inform maybe some decisions later down the road. So because we offer a dual language program and because we have it in Polish, if somebody qualifies for it but we have no room in the Polish program, what happens then? Are we out of compliance or how does that work?
So great question. We haven't had that happen yet.
Okay.
So it hasn't happened. Because we've opened up 2 sections of the program, we've been blessed that we haven't had to meet that criteria yet. But I think if we did, I think we would have, conversations of, what is then, what do we do? How do we offer it? What are the next steps in that process? We are lucky. Friendship right now is TBE in Polish. So we are also, as we hire ESL teachers, what we try to do our best of is start to look at demographics within those buildings and hire teachers with that background language. So like a school like Brentwood, they have a Polish speaking teacher there that's ESL. They don't need it, but we have it because we know that the demographics there are large and with Russian and Polish and the Eastern European. So we want to have some of those languages available. So as we're increasing our ESL staffing, we're trying to find those languages so that when we tell our ESL teachers, you're a ESL teacher for the district, based on those needs, we can move them. So I think if we ever came into that situation, we may not be able to offer dual language Polish, but we certainly would be able to give them Polish content instruction because we would have the staff available to do that. We have multiple staff members serving on the ESL team that have the Polish.
So does that satisfy what we're required to do?
It would depend on where the students, where they measured linguistically with their access scores. So a student who scores a 4.2 or above, they would only qualify for part-time TBE. Any student that qualifies below a 4.2 then do qualify for full-time TBE. Full-time TBE means that we should be providing them all contents in their native language the entire time. A 4.2, which is a part-time, it only requires one content language, unless it's a language that does not have written components readily available to districts.
What's the sad reality for the student that speaks, let's just say language X, 4 kids in his building speak language X, his English proficiency is incredibly low. Does that student just go through the day unable to understand what's going on?
So I would hope no, because I think we put a lot of resources in place. So one of the things that we've really started to look at, especially with our newcomer populations and how large it is we put translation devices within all of our buildings. Now we don't want to rely on that as a crutch, but we certainly know that we need those for our students in order to give them the opportunity to be successful and just to be able to communicate their basic functions that they need. So in our buildings, all buildings have what's called a pocket talk, and those are for our office staff mainly. But it's the translation one-to-one device, and that's really available for all of our office managers to be able to make phone calls to families, for the nurses to contact families for any language whenever a kid's sick, whenever that is, instead of having to worry about trying to find a translator that's readily available to them. We also have Streamer now, which is available for all students via their computer device. So what that is exceptional on is that I can be speaking here in English, and each one of you right now can be getting it in 7 different languages if you wanted it. All of you can be listening to it in a different language. What's also powerful about that is I can now be part of a group. I can have a dialogue with you, and I can be speaking Spanish to you. You could be speaking to me in Gujarati. You could be speaking to me in Polish, and we can all understand each other because I'm receiving it in the language that I need. You're receiving it in the language that you need, and now we're a community. So we provide that for all of our staff and our teachers who do need that, and all of our students who do require those needs. We give them that. So I would hope that because of that, they're not going through the day not knowing. I think we've done a great job allowing them to have access to content and language.
So if I could pause for 1 second, because I think this could easily turn into a 2-hour Q&A, which obviously, Dr. Bruno can talk at length about any one of your questions. if we could just get through maybe the highlights of this, because I want to make sure we leave this meeting with feedback on our specific options. And then if the board so chooses that we go more in depth around questions, absolutely. I just want to make sure we get
I
to
agree.
this.
I
portion.
started that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Finish your slides.
I'll go fast. So just the goals of dual language, because this is a model that we have chosen in District 59, it is, again, just to become bilingual, biliterate, high achieving, and globally competent. So we want to make sure that that's the goal of dual language. This is just giving you the numbers of dual language students across the district. You can see it broken down by school, and then a total we serve is 1,269 within our entire district.
So in the last few years, since we had our dual language leadership team, we've had our audits, we have worked internally to make changes to our program based on feedback from staff over the last number of years. So a couple of recent improvements, as you were well aware, is our new high quality, authentic resources. That is our year one with staff. Very positive feedback from our dual language teachers, and it's making a very big difference in our programming currently. Another improvement is that we've been able to increase our number of dual language instructional coaches, as well as continually increasing our bilingual resource support. This year was our first year we're able to really move some teachers from classroom positions into some of these positions. And next year, we're quite excited. We have actually the largest group who are shifting to some new roles to support their classroom peers in resource positions. So improving some of those supports around newcomer, bilingual support, and some of those around intervention as well. So this is a nice shift for us. So these were areas of focus that we've been working internally on very, deeply the last couple of years. And we're fully staffed right now currently, correct? Which is a huge celebration this time of year. Fully staffed for all of our dual classrooms, and we're hoping it stays that way so we can keep this support in place. So we continue to meet some challenges, which we heard when we had our dual language teachers here, but to do a recap, to share what we're describing here are kind of where we're hitting a roadblock because we don't have the mechanisms to control these pieces. For example, we continue to face singletons in our schools, and singletons kind of connect with all of these other components. Currently, right now, we have 14 dual language singletons, but 24 monolingual singletons. So just keeping that in mind, the way we're structured, depending on where you are in the district, it could be a monolingual or it could be a dual teacher that's facing this. As a result, it creates a lot of ranges in our classes from 8 to 25, which is a very wide range, which creates instability for teacher assignment and movement. We continue to have problems with our bilingual education compliance. So next year, we anticipate that 40 of our dual language classes will be out of compliance, meaning that they're larger than their monolingual counterparts at that school site, which we are not supposed to be doing, but we really don't have the option just due to where the students are enrolling. Physical space limitations. This year, we felt this more than ever. Particularly, we've shared some of students enrolling at some of our schools, not having a seat for them. They then had to go to another building that had dual because the parents wanted dual. And now we have siblings moving around the district, and it's becoming a little bit difficult. And we're really seeing that. It's the space. We would move, we'd open a section, but we can't. There's no place to open up another classroom. I talked about teacher assignment instability. This has to do with all of the above. And then really students' ability to access programming continues to be something we want to do our best. We want parents, when they have a choice, to get what they want. And when you think about our students, 28%-ish of students do not attend their home school in order to access bilingual education services. So some do. I'm thinking, let's look at John Jay. There's many families that live right around there. They're there. They have services. However, there's many that have to move around the district. Polish dual language program is a great example of that. They have to come from across the district to get that program at Claremont. So that's just where we continue to face challenges. And as an administrative team, we don't have any other ability to change this. So now we're coming to the board to discuss what do we think we can do to shift this a little bit. And we're happy with the progress we're making, but we'd love to solve some of these problems if possible. And I know you all do as well. We just have to find a way to do it. And it's complex.
So I'll
Sure.
kick off at this one. So what we want to bring in front of the board tonight is what are 3 mechanisms that the board has at their discretion that could be levers that could move us out of those challenges and hopefully more towards those successes. So there's 3 areas, and they're not all just isolated solutions. They really are interdependent in some regards and can be done in combination to address the needs. This again ties back to what we're talking about with the WOLD presentation as well. So program consolidation, working with our dual language task force, this is one area where we probably have leaned most towards, is looking at how do we maximize efficiencies, resources, space with our students in order to meet all of their needs. So that is the best example we have is our Polish dual language program. That is a actual in practice consolidated program that we have in District 59. So that's one piece. There's pros and cons to each of these that we can kind of go through and then open it up for the board to really give us guidance and feedback. The second one is just looking at boundary changes. So we know we've already experienced one boundary change approved by the board for our Brentwood area. That is a very natural change that occurs over time as we have fluctuations within our communities. Obviously, our newcomer population has been most significantly impacted in specific locations, requiring us to look annually at our boundary changes. And then lastly, it's building construction. So how can we modify or add to our schools so that we can create multiple programs within one building while also eliminating the singletons? And if you do the math, the only way to do that is in at least a minimum of 4 sections per grade level at an individual school. We currently only have several schools that can even operate at a 4-section level. That's Salt Creek. Claremont is also a great example. 2 sections of Polish dual language, 2 sections of monolingual with ESL supports for students that need it in any other language as required. So, and then I think Juliet Low is even shifting as we've expanded our ELS program. And then Rupley also has the capacity for 4 sections per grade level as well. But through building construction, a lot is possible. These are all options and opportunities. There's timelines and pros and cons, as we mentioned, with each of these. If we start with program consolidation, one of the negatives or outcomes that could potentially be an issue that we all recognize as a dual language task force is that in order to create a center for one program, that means students in other programs would have to move out. So we need to know, is this an opportunity or is this something that our board would not be willing to entertain? If so, that gives us great guidance to take back to our task force and we can focus on other things. So I really, at this time, open it up.
Sorry,
So-
when you,
Yeah.
programs moving out, do you have like an example of what that might be?
Sure. So for example, you have, let's take John Jay, or we could take even Bird, where they currently have more sections of dual and typically single sections of monolingual. So if we moved the monolingual sections out and diverted those, created new boundaries for those students at neighboring schools such as Claremont or over to Juliet Low or over to Forest View for the John Jay piece, and accordingly, then you would have multiple 2-3 sections of just dual language within those schools.
So then we're talking about the academies being just focused on dual language.
Yeah, so you have to look at it on both sides because what that conversely creates. So right now we are in the process of creating a monolingual school at Brentwood.
Mm-hmm.
We have created a monolingual school at Devonshire. We have, as I don't know how far back, but Forest View is also a good example of a monolingual academy. Then you have Ridge. That obviously has school of choice, so there's a little bit, an asterisk next to that one. But we currently have in practice 3 monolingual academies, if you will. We do not have any schools that are solely dual language academies.
Okay.
That was
so-
just a clarification. So
Okay, so in that situation, if we don't change the boundaries, the students could choose to continue in the program at the new location. I was just more asking, is there is there some sort of program I'm not aware of that is like operating in a school? You're just talking the dual language.
This is most
Sections and-
specifically
okay.
around dual
Got it.
language programming.
So they wouldn't have
Yes.
to necessarily move. If they wanted to continue dual language, they would move. If not, if we didn't change boundaries, their home school could still be Bird in a monolingual classroom with multiple sections if enough students stay. And so I guess my biggest question in terms of program consolidation, and this also goes into building construction, would be how many sections. It looked like we had about 1,300 students in the dual language program. I don't know if there's a certain percentage that includes Polish and Spanish. Okay.
Yes.
So that's maybe 65 total sections, but I'm sure it's probably more because there's smaller class sizes. I just went on 20.
Yeah.
Like, if we consolidated them, we're thinking classes of 20-ish. So 65 sections roughly. Or sorry, 65. Yeah. But there's 6 grades in each school. So maybe 10 total sections per grade level, essentially. I think, isn't that right?
Let's actually flip to we created some resource slides here
Perfect.
for you. That might make this conversation a little, these are our projected elementary sections for next school year.
Okay.
And actually those are, those are by each of our junior high clusters that you can kind of see. And Mr. Vittori, who was amazing and put all of this together, and it continues to grow and get even better. Do you want to just talk about the color coding in here?
Excuse me, absolutely. So it's orange on my screen. That is a monolingual class. The blue is a dual language class. That's noted in the lower left if you forget. The red box around a class is aligned to the certified contract language that says once a class has 23 students or less than 13, more than 23, we should start having a conversation to troubleshoot class size. So that's just to show you where we're at. You'll notice the kindergarten numbers are very similar to the first grade numbers because we're just projecting right now kindergarten. But first grade's a little different because we know some kids have come in. Right now there are 76 dual language classes, 38 total singletons, 24 of which are for monolingual, 14 are for dual. And so Bird's a good example, 310 students in the school. There are 2 monolingual classes in kindergarten, a 12 and an 18, and the dual is 18. And that's how you can kind of read that chart.
This is very helpful.
Yeah, so I think what Tiara was going for is there's if you consolidate down, you may have 2 sections at 2 buildings, but it could become a balanced 3 sections at an enlarged building. Sort of.
Yeah, well, I was more saying, so if I think the Claremont example is good to work off of. They have 4 sections, so there's no, what do we call them, singletons? So there's no singletons there, and it's up. So my question is basically getting at how many schools would we need maybe on the north side or the south side of the district to house the Spanish dual language program? And I'm not saying like tomorrow or overnight, like a phased process. And then to go with the Wold study, which schools can accommodate that and or accommodate construction at the best, bang for our buck, as we were saying earlier, to become that, but also not lose the monolingual class, at least 2 sections of monolingual classrooms. So the only reason they would have singleton is just because there's not enough students living within that boundary who are looking for it. Is basically what I'm boiling my opinion down to.
Mm-hmm. So for example, if we just look at the friendship cluster at the top.
Yep.
We have, it's kind of the easiest one out of the 3. There's 2 sections at every grade level across the cluster for dual language currently and projected for next year. Some are at Frost, some are still matriculating over from Brentwood as we move forward.
So those Brentwood ones are essentially going to move down to Frost.
Correct,
Those
correct.
Like blue.
So if Frost had the capacity for 4 sections, you could make Frost the dual language academy while also maintaining up to 2 sections of monolingual.
Right.
You probably wouldn't quite level off class sizes. You're going to have some class size like you look at the Frost 2 sections of kindergarten versus Brentwood's. That's where you're going to have discrepancies because you don't have the economy of scale with the 2 sections versus 3 at the other schools.
But if we consider construction, we could do like a 4.5 sections, so the kindergarten classes could be split at Frost, right?
Yeah, but you have to still leave room. So for example, like 3rd grade, that you're going to have bubble years that are going to go up and down. And that is just the nature of education, right?
So you just need a little bit extra.
You need a
capacity
little
sometimes.
bit, you need a little bit more on either end to really create a 3-section school doesn't just need 18 classrooms, right? And a 4-section school doesn't just need 24. But literally, I think Joshua, Susan, and I have sat and crunched all of those numbers because what happens too is when you start consolidating, you get economy of scale. So rather than having a 13 and a 14 and a 12, you actually can be like, oh, okay, we could have 2 20s, right? And so it balances out a little bit. Homes works out fairly nicely. Again, you would have to do construction on a building in order to get 4 sections, and then you're going to run probably smaller class sizes. Grove is where it gets a little bit more because that is our highest concentration of dual language numbers. If you leave Claremont as is, then you're really looking at probably 2 sites on the south side of the district that would require that model, which would require 1. Salt Creek is already set up. Rupley potentially has the space as well to eliminate singletons and run 4 sections.
Yeah, or if you really just want to have, I guess it makes sense to feed them into the different junior highs. But if you have one on the, I don't know what bus times are, but we can figure that out. You don't have to do it. You could do a 6-section school. You can do right?
Or 5,
So
yeah.
I assume once the construction starts, I don't know how much more it is to go from 5 sections to 6 or 4 to 5 or.
But then is it also
6
possible to combine this somehow with tweaking boundaries a little? So
If
Bird could be a
yeah.
2-section monolingual if it just.
We also
shifted the
played
boundary a
with,
little
yes, you can absolutely do that too. A lot of it does play into boundaries. So you would create multiple boundaries on the south side, let's just say across the Grove cluster. Whereas if I live in this boundary and I want to be in monolingual, here's where my school would be. If I'm in this boundary and I'm dual language, then so you'd almost have to create a boundary for both a monolingual and a dual language school.
Can we do that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we essentially do that with Claremont now, right? If you're in dual language for Claremont, the whole district is the boundary compared to the monolingual
Yes.
boundaries.
I don't want to be left behind. I have some questions. When we're talking about a dual language academy model, we are talking about 2 sections of each, or are we talking about consolidating so that the entire school is, for example, a dual language Spanish school?
I think we can decide what we want, but for me personally, I would not like to tell a family that they can't go to the school in their neighborhood.
And I also have a concern about segregating programs in that way, because I feel like
Right.
having monolingual peers in the same building and having interactions is important.
Okay, so you guys are in agreement
school-
that you would like.
Model a school within a school. Sort of
Yes,
thing.
so you both were interested in terms of consolidation, a 4-section building, basically, that has 2 sections of each.
Whatever's needed. I don't know.
Okay.
And
It may
goes-
be 5 or 6 at some point.
And it goes back to the question of this is the hard part, predicting if we do make these changes, how many students, let's say everything stays the same with boundaries, how many students at Bird who are in the dual language program would choose to then go to Rupley instead versus stay at Bird and be on a monolingual path. So that's the hard part.
Right.
And then also, if we're to go back to the Polish dual language program, what is the consequence are we just trying to find more space within the building if we have too many Polish kids and speaking kids enroll in that program at that school, or what? So that's another thing that we have to, because we're not going to know until maybe we can know, maybe we can do focus
So
groups
can I ask a clarifying question? Is everybody, or what are the opinions on creating buildings that are specifically just dual language buildings? Are people interested in that or not interested in that?
That's a good question. I'm not, Joe.
I would be fine with it, but I don't see how it works out.
My worry there, I don't like that idea. I worry of just, and I know the school report cards are not everything, but I worry of putting all English learners in one building, and then the negative consequences of every school we do that is a targeted school or something like that. You know what I mean? Or it's, compared to schools that have very small English learner populations, that you can't compare apples to apples in that situation.
Yeah, maybe I should clarify. I don't like the idea of a single language academy. That I just think the interactions between the multiple programs is important.
Does everyone agree? Because
So then is what we're discussing here the Claremont model, where the schools would look like Claremont?
I think they're laying this out for us to tell them what we're comfortable with.
Yeah.
So nobody's comfortable moving forward with, hey, Bird School is now just a dual language academy, and the kids who go to Bird for monolingual are now going to Salt Creek or somewhere else.
Yeah.
No?
Correct.
Okay. Does that help?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So then I want to follow up on that. I think that predicates that we need to do some construction to three-section.
Right.
It doesn't work with three-section buildings, I don't think. And so if we look at the districts around us, in the past dozen years in District 59, we've added dual language at many, many sites, and we've done full-day kindergarten. And if you look at our neighbors who are starting to implement full-day kindergarten, they're expanding their buildings. We never did that. And so I think we're trying to operate sort of in this restrictive environment of these three-section buildings. And so I think part of it is we have to look at how that works out. And it may be there's a couple buildings that need to become 4-section, or there's a couple that need to become 5-section to make the numbers work out properly.
Yeah, 'cause I think that's what we discussed, where, like John Jay, for example, there is no room to do, correct me if I'm wrong, like a 4-section.
No.
For like kindergarten first.
Correct.
Can we flip to the next?
Without construction, right?
Okay, so next visual aid. Ross is prepared. This shows you the utilization currently or projected for 24-25 of each of the classrooms as they currently exist. So if you look right now, there is Claremont appears to have 2 spaces. Is that with the?
So if you look on the bottom of this chart, there is a key.
Yeah.
So let's look at Claremont.
Those are the
406
portables.
students, 26 spaces is what they need, and they have 26. And then you can see there's 2 sections of mono K, 2 sections of dual K, all the way to they need a room for art, they need a room for music, and the 2 with the red around them are mobiles. So you can see the mobiles up at Frost, and right now those are being used for art and music. I wasn't quite sure how Claremont was using the mobiles just yet. Rupley is a good example. You can see the ELS program. And those programs sometimes need more classrooms than they need just classes. They need a PE room. Then you'll see like there's a room where LBS staff work, ESL teachers, and so on. There are a couple of schools with orange. You'll see at Rupley, SEL, food. Those are district things. So that's a room for organic life. Some of our community outreach specialists might use an empty space in our buildings that have it.
So if you look, Salt Creek is the ideal 4-section building that still allows for some small group spaces and dedicated art and music. So you can see kindergarten only has 3 sections, but then it goes 4, 4, 4, 4, 4.
And then we're using 5 rooms for district space there. The space is there. Rupley had space, and so did Juliet Low, but not anymore. We have to shift our mindset because they are housing programs.
So one thing that we'll never, if I'm looking at Salt Creek, one thing we'll never solve for, maybe we will, is if there's just not enough kids to prevent a singleton classroom. I mean, there's really nothing we can do about that.
Correct. I think you're going to be plus or minus 1 on any given year at any given grade level. That is the fluctuations with enrollment. And now if we continuously see a decline or trend, that's why I think we need to look at boundaries on a regular basis when we start to see some trend data. But yeah, you have to plan for the plus or minus one, I think, across any of them. But this, so what I'm hearing, and this is really helpful because I'm kind of keeping a nice tally chart here. So would all of the board members be interested in creating a 2 program buildings similar to our Claremont model if we were able to determine what is the ideal building to create that 4+ section building in the area to accommodate that need?
And in each cluster, it's slightly different, correct?
It varies greatly from cluster to cluster.
Yes.
But we will then, and which was your question, TR, to Mike during the Wold presentation, we will know what the limitations are, land-wise, property line-wise for each of these to know, like, okay, we can't expand much at this one. Is there a school within that cluster that could serve as a 4+ section building? And knowing that on the south end, we already have a couple that are there, but the need again is the greatest. But I want to be very clear and be really intentional about how we phrase this. So those students who live within a school that will no longer house dual language, for example, Devonshire, for example, Brentwood, those families who wish to secure the programming that their child is entitled to by law they will have a choice that they have to make. Either deny services and remain within their building or move to another school in order to access their program.
Deny the dual language services, but still receive ESL services. Correct?
Correct. They
Okay.
could still receive ESL, but they are denying their bilingual services that they're entitled to. Yes.
Okay. And sorry, one last. So I think, construction's not quick, as we see. We can probably start to phase, like we did it. I think how you all are working it at Brentwood is good, very good. So I think that, again, Brentwood is almost like the model for how it could potentially work. If it's, I don't, there's a lot of nuance that I don't know. So
let me just use an example. I'll use my home cluster here with Juliet Low. Let's say Juliet Low will be the dual language school. So ideally, Juliet Low will have 4 section grades, right? So 2 dual language, 2 monolingual classrooms per grade. That would be the ideal, just hypothetically here. Families from Forest View, families from John Jay, if they want to get dual language, would have to go to Low. In those, I don't know. I guess what I'm wondering is, are we going to hit capacity issues at one school if the cluster is all feeding into one school? Like, are we back to where we started? I guess that's kind of.
I think that's where we line up. I don't know. I think it's got 4 sections, Juliet Low, right?
Like I said, like assuming it'll change. Like if or would
they
I just
don't
use
have
that
4
as an
sections, but
example?
they have the capacity. Maybe,
Right.
and again, I don't know if they go from maybe John Jay is the place that they should go because it has
Sure.
more room for construction or something underneath the soil that's going to be a better place to build versus Juliet. I think.
Right. One school will
And
have the 4.
And that cluster
more.
in particular, you are looking at 4 sections of dual. So you may have to look at 2 schools housing dual and monolingual. So that may be, modifications to Juliet Low and to John Jay or Forest View, whichever. But I think we have to look, if we are not going to adjust major boundaries to the junior highs, and we also want to maintain pathways from elementary to junior highs within the elementary schools, then we would need to look cluster by cluster to determine how many sections we would need to fully avoid singletons to the best of our ability on both the monolingual side and the dual language side.
Let me ask a question, and not to be difficult, but Dr. Perdoma, this question, one of them is going to be very easy, one of them is going to be very difficult. No need to answer today if you don't have it. For the easy one, what are other dual language districts near us doing? How do they do it? Like 54 or something like that. Like what is it similar to this? Is it Do we think it's successful? Do we think, in our opinion, as a district here, do we think it's failing, et cetera? That's kind of the easy one. The hard question that you don't have to answer today. If today was your first day here, and we said, here's how our dual language is set up. You have an eraser and you can erase this whole board and draw it up the ideal way. What would that look like? You know, like assuming we start from scratch and wipe the board completely clean. Because sometimes I wonder, like, yes, we need to make adjustments and changes, but are we making adjustments? Are we adding more seasoning to the pot as we're cooking versus let's just go to the grocery store, start from scratch, and cook the meal, right? You know, so it's just kind of like, what would that look like, just so we can get an idea. But like I said, you don't have to answer that. Sure.
I think he's thought long and hard about these.
I think if I were to have an eraser and put it all together, I think, you know, ideally some sort of consolidation of a dual language academy would be the ideal situation for our students. I think I do value the opportunity for our students to be able to be integrated with other students and be able to have those opportunities. So increasing the opportunities for two-way models would be amazing to be able to do that. If we can do construction and we can get 4-section buildings, I think that's fantastic. But I think having our students and the opportunity for our students to be in a consolidated academy model where their resources are provided for them in a much deeper, impactful way, I think would make dual language much more successful than it is right now. I think we're moving in the right direction, and I think there's a lot of things we can do to make it better. When you asked about what other neighboring districts are doing, that's what a lot of neighboring districts are doing right now. They're consolidating their programming. A lot of them, some districts, not a lot of them, I should say some districts I know have moved to full dual language academy, and I will tell you that they're not targeted schools, and they do come from areas where they are, Title I schools where they're receiving free and reduced lunch their entire population, and they are not in the, they're not targeted. They're making growth and they're making their academic gains, and they're doing that because, again, of that consolidation and because of those services and the resources that are really much provided for the students to be successful. I know a lot of districts, so those districts are doing that. Other districts are doing the model of the 2 and 2 if they can get it in there, a model within a model, building that opportunity for those schools. But I know many districts that have had dual language as a singleton are starting, not all figured out, obviously, are looking at ways to either make it a school within a school so it's more impactful, or creating a cluster site where it's a true dual language academy and building the brand of the two-way model so that it's inclusive of all students.
Can you just speak to the enrollment of the two-way students in terms of the total program, let's say roughly 1,300? I know the answer, but how many are native English speakers who are enrolling in the program?
Oh, the total number?
I think you said 100, right? It was like...
Yeah, it's about 100,
okay.
Yeah.
So it's not a large... So in order to get what you're saying, where we have an academy where it's blended classrooms with native English speakers and native Spanish speakers all the way through, that would take a lot of work to get enough people to enroll in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't disagree. I think one of the pieces that we can do a better job of is if we wanted to expand our two-way model. Our two-way models are choices, but it also gives our students this opportunity to integrate, right? When people talk about there's research out there, two-way versus one-way, which is better, which is not, they both have the same philosophy. They both have the same curricular aspects. They both have the same goals. I think what makes the two-way model stronger is that it has the opportunity for inclusion. It has the opportunity for students to be integrated. I think the piece that we've missed in 59 that we've gotten better at is that, and Mr. Mencia might be able to attest to this, is when we had dual language in the past, we had dual language family nights that were really only open to our families that were in the program. And so we've had a great following within the district of the families that have known about what dual language is and have wanted to continue in it. What we've lacked the education on is be able to share with all of our families what is dual language and what are the opportunities for there. So one of the things that we've started doing is at Kindergarten Information Night, where Ms. Savage and I we get to meet with all families, with those that come. And, we've had bigger turnouts each and every year, but we get to share with them, what is Ridge? What is dual language? What is ESL? What are all the things that 59 has to offer? Because I think once we start to build that brand, if that's what we want, then that's how we start to build those opportunities for acknowledgement. I think becoming bilingual is a huge asset in any opportunity to be able to do that. So if we can provide that to our families, not that they have to be, but if that's an opportunity to build a brand, to be able to say that this is something you can do, I think it would, it's a way to set us apart from other districts as well, because, that gold standard is creating these students that are leaving 59, going into 214, graduating with those CLO biliteracies and becoming successful in careers, I think is something that we could.
I think that's something to definitely aspire to,
Mhm.
but if we go with consolidation and we don't have an answer to how many kids will remain, go to the new academy, we'll call it, we have to save the space before we let a two-way student enrollment. So we're effectively ending the two-way program for now.
Yes and no. In the numbers that we did crunch, though, we maintained it where some our schools would still be able to have blended. I don't think the goal was to, diminish it entirely. I think what we did with the numbers is we did limit it so that it wasn't overtaken by. But we do that now, anyways. When we look at John Jay for next year, based on what happened this year, I had to limit it. I couldn't just let every single person go in that wanted to be in it, because at the end of the day, we were turning away students that required those services to be at their own home school because we didn't have seats available to them. So I think when you do the consolidation model it's a numbers game, you're right, but it does allow for more wiggle room in those settings once we create those opportunities, because now those 3-section schools, 4-section schools, however we did, determine them, it allows for the opportunity to have some plus or minus within that wiggle room. But there's always going to be some limitations to caps as we have to start to see what trends really show us.
What is the percentage that turns it into a two-way compared to a one-way?
So ideally, the class makeup should be, a 50-50 makeup.
Right.
But when we look at 50-50, it's very different now. So I actually like to say that it's like a 30-30-30. I know that doesn't add up to 100, but 33-33-33. When we say that, it's because, our demographic of our students right now we have some truly native Spanish-speaking students that are coming in that holistically, if you were to give them the screener, they'd score really high on that screener. Then we have our English-speaking students, and I say English loosely because we don't give them a screener to determine how proficient in English they are. We just know that they don't have another language. And then we have a lot of students that are coming in with simultaneous bilinguals, and that when we do give them those screeners in English and in Spanish because they're in the two-way program or in dual language altogether, we see that they are neither high nor low and either or. So those students are really coming in, learning both languages at the same time. So I would say that it's a 33-33-33 would be your perfect blend of a student to make it a two-way.
So I just want to run a question down all the way here. So it's a crazy question, but the dual language model is the model we're using for all of our students. Is it necessary to have that single model, or could we do that with a combination of, say, TBE at some sites?
Yeah, so there's no requirement. The state does not require one model. It doesn't endorse this is the one you have to do. It does give us the 3 approved models. The different, though, philosophically, when you look at a TBE model versus a dual language model, is a TBE model. So early exit, for example, is all students, only ELs can participate. So there's no opportunity for integration. Everything is taught in Spanish. So the program TBE is set up. So in kindergarten, for example, their entire day, with the exception of about 30 minutes, would be in English. Everything, though, would be, so they're more than 90% of their day would be in Spanish, with the exception of those 30 minutes in English. That would follow them in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade. And then in 3rd grade, it's that sink or swim model. Everything becomes English. So with the model of that, it's a subtractive model. So what ends up happening is we're teaching students kindergarten, 1st grade, crucial years of education. We're teaching them all the literacy foundations in how to read, write, and speak in Spanish, which is fantastic, right? But what we don't give them the opportunity to do is to transfer that skill to English. Mm-hmm. So what we end up seeing is less proficient English-speaking students by the time they leave 5th grade because they have not had the opportunity. So when they get to 3rd grade, it's like you're almost some students get it and they're able to make that transfer, but by 3rd grade, a lot of students I just learned how to read and write and I could do all of this in Spanish, but I have no idea that there's long vowels in in the English language. I was never taught that because that's not part of the TBE model. The TBE model is to teach Spanish so that you can then hope to make the transfer into English, because the concept is to learn your L1 before you can learn your L2. That's why TBE has really diminished, has really kind of dissolved in a lot of districts because of the impact education only has on students was not seeing the outcomes that districts wanted to see. And that's why I went to a dual language model. So we can absolutely do it, but just know that it would be a huge difference in how they're being educated as far as the philosophical model of what a TBE model is.
So if I have, just let me finish the train of thought here. So if I have a school that is currently operating with the dual language model and we consolidate down the dual language, so it's not offered at that school anymore, students would have the option to go to the dual language program at the site that has more space, whatever we do. But the students that remain would do ESL then, right?
Correct. Those that would choose not to get bilingual education would do ESL.
And that would be, in your opinion, that would be better than TBE as a model.
Yes, professionally and personally, I do believe that a ESL model would be better than TBE. It would give our students a better outcome in their future to be able to be successful.
Yeah, I always like to put myself in the shoes of the families here. And like the TBE example of, if I moved to Germany with my family and my son was a kindergartner, he would be in English classes, kindergarten, first and second. And then either he learned German or not, because in third grade it's in German, right? That's kind of the TBE model here. Like,
yes.
Just flip. Now, what is like the ESL model? How's that different? Just so I can better understand that.
So ESL instruction is all in English. So in that model, our families are making the commitment that whether it's their first language or second language or just the language of the home, they're essentially saying that they're willing to give that piece up in order for them to really advance the English language. So all of our students they have their ESL certification, but all their instruction is in English. What they're doing, though, is that they're supporting students in identifying some of those key factors. That's why we try to do the best that we can demographically where we have our students. So, for example, at Devonshire, we have a Spanish-speaking ESL teacher because because of the dual language program, those students have still wanted to stay there. We know that we still need the Spanish support. What that teacher is able to do in English is because she's bilingual, she's able to understand what some of those nuances the students are making in the language. So in Spanish, if you're putting we say instead of red dog, we say el perro rojo. So the noun goes before the adjective. The teacher would then be able to understand and see, okay, that's wrong in English, but understand why the student is doing that because linguistically it is correct in their native language. So then they're able to pinpoint some of those make those transfers. If they're seeing that the student is saying B versus V, which is easily mistaken in Spanish because they sound the same, the teacher then knows that is developmentally appropriate for that child. So what our ESL teachers are able to do, because they're teaching it's all English, but they're able to then pinpoint some of those nuances in language to be able to excel some of their learning in English.
That makes sense.
Okay. It's not 8:45. Does anybody have any? Sorry, okay. We can schedule. Anybody can schedule time anytime they have to go into a little bit more depth. But I want to make sure we give, because we asked for this, so we could give you guidance to work over the summer. I think then maybe our next update might be August. In terms of, have we given you enough direction on where to go?
Yeah, I think if we could go back to the slide with the 3 options. So I think when we talk pure program consolidation to create, dual language only academies, I'm hearing no interest in pursuing that.
Correct.
When we look at the other 2, I think to what extent is the board interested in seeing boundary changes? And to what extent is the board interested in seeing building construction?
I think I'll speak for myself and then I'll let everybody else chime in real quick. Boundary changes, possibly. I didn't know that an option was to have specific boundaries for the program. So if you want to stay at your school, you can still stay at your school, but we just maybe expand those boundaries for the dual language program. So that is of interest to me. One thing that I would maybe want to see with the matrix that you have is what kids are already not going to their home school. Well, I guess the boundaries dictate what school they go to because we have dual language in every school mostly, but how many kids are already moving a long distance to go to a school that's not near their home? So
Yeah, so that was at 28%, because we looked that number up today. So, and I think that works out to be.
It ranges from a low of 12 to a high of 140.
So I guess my question would be if you go back to the matrix real quick. So let's use Claremont's back. Let's use John Jay. A lot of dual language sections. Do a majority of those kids live in the John Jay boundary already? And if so, I think if construction permitting, move the Juliet Low to John Jay, because you're displacing as few neighborhood school kids as possible. Does that make sense? Okay. That's my only thing on the boundary. And then construction, I'd be willing to listen to all and any recommendations.
I'm all ears for boundary changes and building construction. There's nothing
Yeah, I would prefer building construction first. If you go back
Yes.
to the matrix again, my concern is if we don't do boundary changes, we may deplete the populations of some schools' mono programs by moving out a significant number of the dual language students. And it may be that because each school has sort of like the neighborhood walking distance boundary and then the busing boundary.
Sure.
And there may be tweaks to the busing boundaries between neighboring schools to rebalance that program that I think would be useful to know about.
Nikki?
Yeah, I'm willing to hear. Sorry, go ahead.
It's okay. I'm all for construction. I do think that most likely boundary changes are going to have to be made to support all of our students.
Yeah, I'm willing to hear both. I think I've made it clear in the past that in terms of a boundary shift, I think it's pretty inevitable. It's been 30 years, but I would like to see those changes happen incrementally just to let our kids recover in a lot of ways. So I would like any boundary shifts to be done responsibly and ideally incrementally, but I'm willing to hear, all of that.
I agree with that.
+1.
All right. Good.
That is very helpful.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. 5.03 monthly updates.
Yes. All right. So we are trying a new format here. When I met for agenda planning with TR and Joe, we wanted an opportunity to go through updates, but bring them a little bit more vocally and in a presentation format. I'm going to go through these very quickly. If anything is, hey, this sparks more conversation and we want to add it as a discussion item in future meetings, that would be a great outcome of this. A lot of this you are going to find is repetition from weekly updates that hopefully you are all reading on a weekly basis. But these are things that we want to broadcast a little bit more, broadly to our community and put them one more time in front of the board, which is always helpful. So, Superintendent, one of the things that I am working on and we hope for a July rollout, as I have shared with the board previously, is department restructuring. We've had 3 years together now, and we're going to be really looking at job titles, departments, and doing some reorg of our departments to make ourselves more efficient and focused on our work, which will be helpful. I'm doing all of these. If we have additional questions, I can always kick it to any member of SLT. So assessments, we are planning a spring benchmarking review at our July board meeting. Very exciting stuff. And preliminary reviews of our IAR are very positive. So excited about that. It's unofficial data at this time, but it will be forthcoming. And obviously we do a ton of professional learning in the summer. There's some data on where we stand with that. This is a busy place over the summer, despite not having students. All right, business services, you already heard the Brentwood stuff, the educational alignment studies, but next thing coming on the big up and coming for the board is the budget review, preparation, and approval. So we are going to be a discussion item tonight. We need your feedback to improve that. If you want to see improvements or adjustments to the format, what you're looking for, your feedback is very important as we go through this process in the next few months. Curriculum and instruction, summer leap and extended school year started today. Ms. Savage went and visited, and we're very grateful for our school leaders that are running that. So it'll go June 10th through July 3rd. And hopefully you read in our weekly about varsity tutoring, which we are in the process of finalizing those details to make that available on an online format to hopefully all students, and then looking at some pilot opportunities in some targeted needs-based areas for our students. We are going tonight be approving our new Cameo contract. So special thanks to TR and to Joe, who both represented on that bargaining team. I think we did it in 4 sessions. Super productive and really collaborative, and very excited about that. Hopefully that bodes well for future negotiations to come, Ms. Wing. Yeah. All right. And then just an update there in terms of our hiring and recruiting. You heard about dual language. We have lots of new people based on the generosity of our district to add new positions to support our students. So we're in a very, very positive place as we wind down our school year in terms of our postings and hiring. Innovative learning and communications. So the audit we are expecting this week, and we hope to have that presented out and shared with our board. Some great positive results from that audit that involved all of our community stakeholder groups. So excited to get that feedback to help guide us. And we are making a shift towards an increased focus on our innovative learning, which we're kind of seeing that shift a little bit now, where we can have some more capacity towards, now that our tier 1 curriculum is in a solid place, we want to see a greater emphasis on those innovative practices. And as you hopefully read, that STEM opportunities at K-5, where we secured over $300,000 in new funding. So very excited about that. Student services, you read about some changes at our junior high with our cell phone policies and practices. So that is very exciting. It is very much based on data and feedback, and kudos to our junior high leadership teams who have been very reflective in their practices to meet our student needs. We also annually review our discipline data and prepare that for our state accountability system, and have seen a decrease in our suspensions, which is really positive and resulting from some very proactive work. And then our administrators, our building administrators, all had an opportunity to participate with Dr. Ossel and under the direction of our director of security, Danny Malik, on the FEMA incident command structure training. So that was exciting stuff in the world of safety. Is that it? Oh, all right. So if you have feedback on the format,
every month. I like this.
yes. So this is the plan. We unveiled it, but if there's tweaks or other additional, I just think it helps to bring to life some of the stuff that it's hard just to read. But if there are things that stand out and you're like, hey, I'd like to discuss this further, then we can add it as discussion items in the next month, which I think will be a good flow of communication. And that's it for that.
Good. All right, next is 6.0, the consent agenda. So we have items 6.01 through 6.10. Can I have a motion to approve the consent? Oh, does anybody want anything pulled from the consent agenda specifically? No? If not, can I get a motion to approve?
I can make the motion. Do I have to read the whole thing?
So moved.
Yeah, so moved, 6.01 through 6.10.
Okay, we got
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, roll call.
Eddie? Aye. Spino absent. Johnson?
Aye.
Mencia, aye. Sager?
Aye.
Chesney?
Aye.
Zach?
Aye.
Motion passes. 7.01, under action items, we have the approval of the food service RFP. Do you have any more background you want to give on it? Oh, okay. If not, can I get a motion to approve the food service RFP as presented?
Sure, I can make the motion. Do you want me to read it?
No, you can just say so moved.
Okay, so moved.
Can I get a second?
I will.
Second. There we go.
Second.
Who is that?
Nikki.
Motion second. Any discussion? If not, roll call.
Spino absent. Johnson?
Aye.
Mencia, aye. Sager?
Aye.
Chesney?
Aye.
Zach?
Aye.
Eddie?
Aye.
Motion passes. 7.02, this is just, we need a motion to approve the adoption of the fiscal year to place the 24-25 tentative budget on public display and set a date for a public hearing, which would be September 11th, 2024. I get a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion. So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right.
All right.
Any discussion? If not, roll call.
Johnson.
Aye.
Mencia, aye. Sager.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Zach.
Aye.
Eddie.
Aye.
Spino absent.
Okay, 7.03, approval to direct the school treasurer, Ron, is that you? To transfer interest earned in the debt service fund to the educational fund for the 2023-24 fiscal year. Have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Joe.
Okay, roll call.
Mencia, aye. Sager.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Zach.
Aye.
Eddie.
Aye.
Spino absent. Johnson.
Aye. That motion is carries. All right. 7.04, approval of bid for seal coating, restriping, and crack filling at our various facilities with Hastings Asphalt Services Incorporated in the amount of $74,543.23. Motion to approve?
So moved.
Got a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call.
Sager.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Zach.
Aye.
Eddie.
Aye.
Spino absent. Johnson.
Aye.
Mencia, aye.
Okay, 7.05, approval of workers' compensation insurance renewal with United Heartland and a total premium of $604,265.
I'll make the motion. So moved.
Second.
Who was that?
It was Lucas.
Any discussion? If not, roll call, please.
All right. Chesney.
Aye.
Zach.
Aye.
Eddie.
Aye.
Spino absent. Johnson.
Aye.
Mencia, aye. Sager.
Aye.
And then finally, 7.06, the approval of the intergovernmental agreement for a school resource officer at
Mount Prospect. So
Friendship.
Holmes.
Holmes, sorry. Holmes Junior High, as written.
I'd like to make the motion resolution to approving the intergovernmental agreement for school resource officer as written.
And I would like to second it.
Okay, any discussion? Roll call?
Zach.
Aye.
Eddie.
Aye.
Spino absent. Johnson.
Aye.
Mencia, aye. Sager.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Oh, 7.07 is the ratification of collective bargaining agreement for custodial and maintenance, the Cameo staff that was referenced earlier. Can we have a motion to approve the contract?
I want to make that motion.
Please.
Yes.
Yes.
I'll make the
Okay,
motion. Make the motion.
by Dr.
Do
Sager.
you want me to say
Second?
something?
No. Second?
Second.
I'll second.
All right, Johnson.
I was there. I'll second. Any discussion?
I just want to thank all the Cameo negotiating team were great guys. They were really clear in presenting what they asked, and I think they were really good in answering our questions and working together, and it was a good relationship building group. It went really well.
Yeah, the last one was 2 years, so this one is 4 years. So thank you to all involved.
And I would like to thank our president and vice president for doing a great job.
Thank you. All right, roll call.
Zach.
Aye.
Eddie.
Aye.
Spino absent. Johnson.
Aye.
Mencia, aye. Sager.
Aye.
Chesney.
Aye.
Motion passes. Discussion items. Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. 8.01, the 24-25 budget layout. I think you alluded this to in your presentation. It's going to require maybe like a working session to determine what everybody wants to see in the budget. Not too detailed, not too high level, somewhere in between. Does anybody have any? Well, we can invite anybody to it as long as we give 48 hours notice, or
We can call it as a meeting if we have more than 3 or more.
Okay.
Or you can have representatives that want to
Yep.
work to gather feedback and then do a working session with Janet and with Ron. I think that direct communication and collaboration would be really helpful in person.
got it. Does anybody really want to be in the budget layout meeting? Lucas? Anybody else?
No offense.
Okay. So Joe? Okay, so myself, Ron, Ron, Lucas, Joe. Okay, so we'll have at least
That's three.
so make it. Yeah.
So we
Like
can call it a
like just have to
facility and
post it.
finance meeting and just plan for that, and then that will be the working session.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So we will coordinate with the three of you and with Ron's team in the next few weeks.
Much appreciated.
Good.
Thank you.
Next one, the annual debt disclosure compliance.
Yes. So just for everyone's information here, the annual debt disclosure compliance is yearly. Back in 2011, the administrative process was passed, authorizing the business official to ensure that we are in compliance with what was said when the bond was taken out. We do have a bond that we still understand are still until March of 2028. We are within the laws of the Security and Exchange Commission when borrowing the money, so that's pretty much what this is, as well as explaining and filing the QSIP, which is the Committee on Uniform Securities Identification Procedures with EMA. So that's what I've done. I shared, there was a document, it's just for your information, with the one bond, as well as the explanation of the information that is given to the Security and Exchange Commission.
Any questions? Some good layout in there in terms of could be used for our budget.
Absolutely.
Okay. Reports of the Board of Education. We'll start with Lucas. Anything to report?
Oh boy. I should have made a nice long list because we've had coffee with the board. That was during the concert. Friendship, yep.
Friendship Orchestra.
Then together, which was amazing. How the quality can change just over a few months. I had a Frost and Forest View visits together with Sarah Zuck.
And I'll just add that was fantastic. Thank you to the administrative teams who had us. That was a wonderful visit just in terms of space and seeing challenges and successes. Lucas even got into a dance competition in one of the hallways with a student, which was fantastic. And we got to read to a 4th grade class at Forest View who were very, very sweet and adored their teacher. So thank you for having us.
Oh yeah, that was a great dance-off. Yeah. Well, let's not forget about the mystery reader, right? In addition, had an opportunity to see the concert at Holmes. No, gosh, at Grove, which also was an amazing experience. But that one was not with coffee with the board, just a personal.
Sarah?
I'll just add to that I, along with TR and Joe, attended the Grove Junior High graduation, which is a wonderful event. Joe gave a fantastic speech and added a lot of levity to the night, so I appreciated that. And congratulations to all of our kids who graduated this May. It was wonderful to see, truly. Also, I attended the Elk Grove Village Memorial Day celebration. I was a 59 representative there. That was a great celebration honoring our veterans, and I think that is all for me.
I had the opportunity with Robert and Joe to go to the Holmes graduation, which was really nice. Robert had a great speech.
Yeah, the same. It's just funny seeing the kids graduate, and then 4 years later, they're the 3 that are up here. So congrats to all our grads, and early happy Father's Day to all the dads out on YouTube.
Okay, so for NSSEO update, the budget has passed. We had passed it previously as a board, and the governing board, all the member district boards passed it, and then we passed it at the last meeting. We also at the last meeting selected a firm to begin a strategic planning process. So that plan will be worked out this summer, and they will look to gather input from stakeholders and member district folks probably in August-ish, September-ish. Julie Gillick, who was the longtime assistant super for business, had her last meeting after 17 years at NSSEO, so that was a bit of an emotional meeting, but We wish her all the best. Since the last meeting, many of us went to the DEA retirement dinner where we saw former board member Schumacher was there, which was great to get a chance to say hi to Mardell. I attended the 5th and 8th grade band concert at Grove. We did coffee with the board at the Friendship Orchestra with Lucas. We had a bunch of cameo negotiations. I attended for NSSEO the minor school graduation and the Timber Ridge school graduation, where I gave a speech to the graduating 8th graders. That's a very emotional time for them because they are done at NSSEO and they will be going to different high schools and different programs throughout the area. And so it's a big deal for them. I attended the Holmes graduation, gave the speech at Grove, attended Friendship, gave the speech at Friendship. We did facilities and finance meeting last Monday, and Julie Jillick's NSSEO business meeting, Julie Jillick's retirement dinner. I'm really looking forward to summer. I also had the Ed Red end of year informational meeting. That's it.
Joe's very busy.
And taking the summer off.
Joe, thank you for reminding me. NSSEO minor roll and stroll. Yep.
Yeah.
That was another thing that
I couldn't make it because I was at a scouting event, but yes.
I was wondering where you were at. Yeah.
Okay, great. I think anything I had was already covered, so we can move on to 10.01, the committee list, which I just want to explain what that is, and then maybe we can discuss it at our evaluation.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Okay.
you can take time to really look. Most of you have been on committees, but Nikki, you're going to want to join in on the fun. So it's structured similarly to what we had this current year. So looking for opportunities for board member representatives to serve in these various capacities. We have specific board committees, which are at the top. And then the following ones are superintendent committees, which really the difference is in terms of formality and number of people that can be present. They aren't necessarily public meetings such as safety, et cetera. The one piece that I think we are looking for some feedback on, and we discussed briefly in our board planning meeting, was facilities and finance. Looking if we want to maintain that as the current structure, or if that's something that we want to embed in a different way. So we'll be looking for feedback on that. And
Yeah,
if you
okay.
have an interest, we can add names in the future.
I think if everybody wants to take a look, see what committees you would like to be on, I think probably anything in yellow there could be like an all thing, and as needed before, kind of like our board policy meeting before the meeting tonight would be my suggestion. And then the superintendent ones are usually like 1 or 2 board members, right? So I guess more if you want to be on any of these committees in white here, just come to the meeting on the 24th or put your name in there and we can hash it out then. Does that work?
That works perfectly. Thank you.
I think that is it for the regular meeting. We do have a closed session, so I just need a motion to go into closed session for items A through F as listed on the agenda.
9:12 is at the time.
9:12, sure.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Zach?
Aye.
Eddie?
Aye.
Nino absent. Johnson?
Aye.
Mencia, aye. Sager?
Aye.
Shezzy?
Aye.
Motion passes. That works. Yeah. And then, Robert, do you want to sign these?